If you are like most people, you have a specific number locked in your head for when you get to finally stop working. That number is 65. It is the golden age when you are supposed to trade your morning alarm for beach chairs and golf clubs. But if you actually sit down with a calculator and look at the real world today, you realize this dream is completely broken. The math simply does not work anymore. We are trying to play a game using rules that were written over a century ago by a German politician who has been dead since the late 1800s. His name was Otto von Bismarck, and he created the world's first modern retirement system in 1889. He chose age 65 not because it was a magical period of human rest, but because almost nobody lived long enough to actually claim the money. Back then, the average life expectancy was around 45 years. Giving people retirement at 65 was like promising them a free spaceship trip to Mars. It sounded amazing, but the government knew they would almost never have to actually pay for it. Today, we are living much longer, but we are still sticking to that same ancient number. This historical accident is the sole reason we expect to stop working at 65 today. It is a bizarre reality when you realize our entire life plan is based on a 19th century political trick. We are running a marathon where the finish line was placed by someone who never expected anyone to actually cross it. Now, millions of us are reaching that line, only to find out there is no prize waiting for us. It is time to look at why this system is crashing down around us and what we can actually do about it. To understand why retirement is broken, we have to talk about the silent thief hiding in your bank account. That thief is inflation. Inflation is simply the way things become more expensive over time, meaning each of your dollars buys less than it did before. Think about the last time you went grocery shopping. You probably bought the exact same milk, eggs, and bread you always buy, but your receipt looked like a phone number. This is not just a temporary annoyance. If you want to retire 30 years from now, a cup of coffee that costs $4 today might cost $10 by the time you stop working. $1 million sounds like a massive fortune that would let you live like a king. In reality, thanks to the slow erosion of purchasing power, $1 million 30 years from now will feel more like $300,000 today. You are trying to hit a target that is bolted to the back of a speeding truck. People save diligently for decades, only to reach their goal and realize the goalpost moved 5 miles down the road. This is why saving a flat stack of cash in a traditional bank account is a recipe for losing wealth. If your money is not growing faster than the cost of bread, you are actually getting poorer every single day. It is a slow, quiet leak that empties your bucket while you are asleep. Imagine working for 40 years, skipping vacations and eating cheap meals, only to realize your reward is a lifestyle of coupon clipping. That is the frustrating truth of the modern economy. This brings us to the terrifying math of how much money you actually need to survive without a paycheck.
Let us look at the actual numbers, because they reveal a massive gap between expectation and reality. To figure out how much you can spend in retirement, financial planners use something called the safe withdrawal rate. The safe withdrawal rate is the percentage of your total savings you can comfortably spend each year without running completely out of money. For decades, the gold standard has been the 4% rule. This rule says that if you have $1 million saved, you can safely spend $40,000 a year adjusted for inflation. Now, take a look at your current lifestyle and ask yourself if $40,000 a year is going to cover your rent, your healthcare, and your groceries. For most people, especially in modern cities, that number is barely enough to keep the lights on. To get a more realistic $80,000 a year, you would need to save a staggering $2 million. For an ordinary worker earning an average salary, saving $2 million is not just difficult, it feels mathematically impossible. It is like trying to fill a swimming pool using a plastic teaspoon while there is a hole in the bottom of the pool. Most of us are barely managing to pay our monthly rent and cover our student loans. Telling someone who is struggling to buy groceries that they need to amass millions of dollars is completely out of touch with reality. If you saved $500 every single month, it would take you over 300 years to reach $2 million. Last time I checked, human beings do not live to be 300 years old. So unless you find a secret chest of pirate gold, the standard savings plan is a fantasy. This gap is not your fault, but it is a direct result of how the retirement system itself was redesigned. To make matters worse, the safety nets that our parents and grandparents relied on have quietly vanished. A generation ago, many companies offered something called a defined benefit pension. A pension is a guaranteed monthly paycheck paid to you by your former employer for the rest of your life after you retire. It was a simple deal. You gave the company 30 years of your life, and they made sure you did not starve in your old age. But in the late 20th century, employers realized that keeping this promise was incredibly expensive. So they decided to quietly shift all the risk onto your shoulders. They replaced pensions with defined contribution plans, which most of us know as the 401k. A 401k is simply a personal investment account where you put your own money, and its value depends entirely on how the stock market performs. Instead of a guaranteed paycheck, you got a DIY investment kit and a pat on the back. If the stock market crashes the year you want to retire, your entire nest egg can shrink by a third overnight. The corporate world managed to pull off one of the biggest financial bait and switches in human history. They convinced us that managing our own complex stock portfolios after a long day of work was a benefit. Now, the burden of not dying broke rests entirely on your ability to outsmart Wall Street. If you make a bad bet, or if the global economy decides to have a tantrum, your retirement is postponed indefinitely. We went from a system of shared stability to a system of individual panic. This DIY retirement experiment is failing right before our eyes. But it gets even more complicated when we look at our own health. On top of the missing pensions, we have to talk about the absolute elephant in the room, which is healthcare.
When you are 25, you feel invincible and think your body will run forever. When you are 65, your body begins to remind you of its expiration date with surprising regularity. Even with government assistance programs, the average retired couple today needs hundreds of thousands of dollars just to cover medical bills. A single unexpected illness can wipe out 20 years of diligent savings in a matter of weeks. This is the tragic irony of the modern retirement system. You spend your healthiest years working in a cubicle, saving every extra penny you have. Then, you finally get your freedom, only to spend it sitting in doctor waiting rooms and paying off medical debt. It is a terrible trade that makes absolutely no sense when you look at it objectively. We sacrifice our youth to buy back our old age, but our old age is the most fragile part of our lives. The system asks us to trade our best years for our most broken years. When you realize that the traditional route leads to a stressful, underfunded retirement, the entire illusion falls apart. You begin to see that clinging to this outdated fantasy is actually keeping you from living right now. But acknowledging that the old dream is dead actually gives us the power to build something much better. So, if the traditional path is a dead end, how do we escape this trap? The answer is not to panic, but to completely redefine what retirement actually means. Instead of working ourselves to the bone until 65 and then stopping completely, we can aim for financial independence. Financial independence is the point where you have enough passive income to cover your basic living expenses, giving you the choice to work because you want to, not because you have to. This might mean transitioning to a lower-stress job that pays less but brings you actual joy. It could mean starting a small online business that brings in a few $100s a month. Think about it like this. If you can make just $1,000 a month from a small side project, that is the financial equivalent of having $300,000 sitting in a retirement account. You do not need to amass millions of dollars before you can start enjoying your life. You just need to build a life that you do not feel the constant, desperate need to escape from. Imagine working 20 hours a week doing something you love instead of 40 hours doing something you hate. You still earn enough to cover your bills, but you also have the time to live, travel, and spend time with family right now. This is not some impossible dream. It is a practical shift in how we view our time and our energy. The math of the old world is clear, and it says we are not going to retire like our grandparents did. But that is okay, because we have the opportunity to build a much more active, balanced, and interesting life instead. We can stop chasing a vintage 1889 fantasy and start designing a life that works for the 21st century. Just remember to take care of your physical health, invest what you can, and don't let an arbitrary number from the past dictate your happiness. After all, the best retirement plan is one where you actually get to enjoy the journey, not just the destination. As always, this is just a guy trying to survive the insane world of money, so please do your own research and talk to a professional before making any massive life choices.